An innocent young woman wanted to be fired from the Millionaire's company. He locked the door and said, "You still don't understand who I am to you." What was meant to be a goodbye turned into a dangerous game of desire. If you enjoy love and romance stories, watch until the end, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment saying where you're watching from. Stay tuned. Sophia Baker walked through the corridors of Vellini Corporation like someone treading on glass, silently, firmly, and with extreme caution. At 23, freshly graduated in strategic design from Columbia University, she carried a resume that, ironically, seemed more prepared for the future than her own heart. Reserved, disciplined, and extremely observant, Sophia was a virgin not only in body, but in the total experience of emotional surrender. A condition born not from morality or religious repression, but from an old trauma buried under layers of rigid self-control that she herself had built. No one at the company knew that at night, locked in her small apartment in Brooklyn Heights, she drew, bodies in tension, hands that don't touch, gazes that vibrate at the limit of restraint. Art she never showed anyone, as if each stroke revealed a hidden version of herself, the woman who wanted to be seen, desired, but who was afraid to fully exist. Her drawings were intimate, raw, filled with a sensuality she had never allowed herself to experience in real life. The Vellini Corporation building rose in the heart of Manhattan like a monolith of glass and steel, mirroring New York's gray sky. Sophia worked on the 15th floor, in the strategic design department, creating advertising campaigns for clients she would never meet personally. It was a safe, well-paid job, but one that left her with a constant feeling of emptiness, as if she were living a life that wasn't hers. It was on a stifling Friday afternoon, when the building's air conditioning seemed to be fighting a losing battle against the suffocating March heat, that she entered the CEO's office with a white envelope in her hands, a resignation letter. But her motivation wasn't the salary, nor professional burnout. Days earlier, she had accidentally found a confidential file in the company system, a document marked as "Cancelled Projects," listing women's names, deadlines, and nebulous observations. Some of those women she vaguely remembered, assistants, consultants, ex-employees who disappeared overnight, as if they had been erased from the company's history. An instinctive sense of alarm took hold of her. It wasn't paranoia, it was female intuition, the kind her mother always told her never to ignore. The notes beside the names were critical, unstable, vulnerable, cancelled due to external interference. What did that mean? Why had these women been catalogued as projects? Adrian Vellini was the CEO, a 41-year-old man who seemed to have been sculpted from polished stone. Cold, austere, flawless. The type of presence that didn't need to raise its voice to completely occupy the space around it. He was wealthy, reserved, and surrounded by never-confirmed legends. Involvement with obscure art, philosophical sects, investments in private clinics specializing in experimental treatments, and a family past as sealed as a Swiss bank vault. They said he never got involved with female employees, and until that day Sophia was just another shadow among many that filled the company's floors. She had seen him only 3 times in 2 years of work, always from a distance, always impeccable, always surrounded by executives who seemed to fear and admire his presence in equal measure. But upon reading the resignation letter, Adrian slowly rose from his Italian leather chair, walked to the solid mahogany door, and locked it with a dry click that echoed through the room. Her heart raced. Her legs weakened, not from physical fear, but from something more indefinable. The presentiment that this man saw in her, something that she herself didn't dare to look at. He approached with calculated calm, each step measured, until he stopped just inches from her. "You're not leaving," he said, with a hoarse, contained voice that seemed to carry decades of secrets. "Not yet. There's something in you that I need to decipher, and that's not on your resume." The gesture, which might sound coercive in any other context, was here imbued with an emotional suspense that displaced time. There was no touch, no threat, just the creation of an invisible vortex between them. A space charged with psychic tension, unnamed desire, and layers of past that began to vibrate in dangerous harmony. Sophia felt her breath falter, not from fear, but from something she couldn't name. It was as if all those nights drawing bodies in tension had been an unconscious preparation for this moment. Adrian wasn't just handsome, He was magnetically disturbing. There was something in his dark eyes that suggested abysses, unexplored territories where reason dissolved. "I don't understand," she murmured, holding the letter with trembling hands. "What do you mean?" Adrian smiled for the first time, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Call me Adrian, and what I mean is that you're not like the others." He went back behind the desk but didn't sit down. He remained standing, observing her with an intensity that made her feel naked. "You found something you shouldn't have found, but instead of reporting me, spreading rumors, you simply decided to leave. Why?" The question caught her off guard. Sophia hadn't reflected on her own motivations. She had acted on instinct, as she always did when she felt threatened. "I don't know. Maybe because I'm not sure what I found. Or maybe because you're smarter than you think." Adrian walked around the desk, approaching her again. "Those names you saw, they were women I tried to help. Women who came from vulnerable contexts and who somehow had their paths altered by me. Not always for the better." Sophia frowned. "Help how?" "That's a long story. Her story that perhaps you deserve to hear." Adrian stopped in front of her, so close that she could smell his masculine cologne, something expensive, sophisticated, but with an underlying note of melancholy. "But first, you need to understand something. You are not in danger. You never were. What you represent to me is different." His eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her tremble. It was as if he was reading her soul, deciphering every fear, every secret desire she hid even from herself. "You're hungry," he said, and it wasn't a question. "Hungry?" Sophia tried to back away, but she was already against the wall. "Hungry to live, to feel, to be touched not just in body, but in soul." His voice was hypnotic, dangerous. "I can see it in your eyes. You're a woman trapped in a domesticated version of herself, and that's a tragedy." Sophia felt her face burn. How could he see through her with such precision? "You don't know me." "No, but I want to." Adrian backed up a few steps, giving her space to breathe. "I have a proposal, something that will seem strange, perhaps even disturbing. But I need you to consider it." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What kind of proposal?" "For 30 days you won't resign. In exchange, I'll invite you to go through a sequence of sensory experiences that I call rituals of presence. Nothing physical without consent, nothing sexual without desire. Just the chance for you to know the side of me that no one knows, and perhaps discover your own." Sophia stared at him, incredulous. "This is madness." "Perhaps, but you've spent the last few years living a life that isn't yours, working in a job that doesn't fulfill you, pretending to be someone you're not, denying desires that are legitimate." Adrian went back behind the desk, but remained standing. 30 days. Just 30 days to discover who you really are when no one is looking. "And if I refuse? Then you'll walk out that door, return to your safe life, and 10 years from now you'll be wondering what could have been." Adrian pulled open a drawer and removed a sealed envelope. "But if you accept, this will change everything for both of us." Sophia looked at the envelope, then at Adrian. There was something about him that frightened and attracted her at the same time. It was like standing on the edge of a precipice, terrifying and exciting simultaneously. "You didn't answer my question," she said, finding courage. "What exactly happened to those women?" Adrian's face hardened. "They got involved with me, and I didn't know how to protect them from the consequences. Some destroyed themselves. Others simply disappeared. One died." Sophia's blood froze. "Died how?" "That," he said, extending the envelope, "is part of what you'll discover, if you have courage." Sophia accepted. Curiosity had won over fear, but not without leaving a deep mark on her conscience. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat on her bed, staring at the sealed envelope that Adrian had given her, without the courage to open it. It was like holding a ticking bomb. She knew the contents would change everything, but she didn't know if she was prepared for the consequences. Her Brooklyn Heights apartment seemed smaller than ever. The walls covered with her intimate drawings stared at her like silent witnesses to her own repression. For the first time, she wondered if Adrian had seen something in her that she herself didn't recognize. A hunger, a need to be awakened from a sleep that had lasted too many years. On the first day of the agreement, she had to face him for 10 minutes without looking away. His office was transformed into a kind of minimalist sanctuary. The curtains closed, only a soft light illuminating the environment. 2 chairs, facing each other. Nothing more. "Look at me," Adrian said, sitting across from her. "Don't think. Don't judge. Just see." The first few minutes were torture. Sophia felt exposed, vulnerable, as if he could read every thought, every insecurity she carried. But then something changed. As the minutes passed, she began to see beyond the surface. She saw the pain in his eyes, the loneliness he carried like armor. She saw a man who had built walls so high that not even he could climb them. "You saw," he said when the time was up. It wasn't a question. "Saw what?" "That I'm hungry too." Adrian stood up, adjusting his suit with an almost nervous gesture. "Hungry to be seen, to be accepted, to not be judged for my mistakes." On the second day, she had to lie on a couch next to him, blindfolded, while he read poems written by women of antiquity. Sappho, Enheduanna, Marguerite Porete. Words laden with desire and pain, with a femininity that traversed centuries to touch something deep in her soul. "Can you feel it?" he asked, his voice close to her ear. "How these women refused to be tamed, how they chose to burn rather than fade away." Sophia felt tears streaming under the blindfold. She didn't know why she was crying, but the ancient words seemed to awaken parts of her that had been dormant for so long. It was as if her own femininity was being called back to life. On the third day, he led her to an underground gallery of the company, a space she never imagined existed. It was 3 floors below the basement, accessible only by a private elevator that required an access code. The gallery was a world apart, raw concrete walls, dramatic lighting and dozens of melted iron sculptures, all female representations without faces. "I do this," Adrian said, watching her as she walked among the pieces. "When I can't sleep, when the ghosts get too loud, I come down here and create." Sophia stopped in front of a particularly disturbing sculpture, a woman with her arms raised, as if surrendering or pleading. The iron had been worked in such a way that it seemed to be dissolving, as if the figure were coming undone in real time. "May I touch it?" she asked. "You may." Her hands found the cold metal and something awakened within her. The texture was rough, almost aggressive, but there was beauty in the imperfection. It was like touching pain transformed into art. "Are they all women you knew?" "Some. Others are women I invented to try to understand the ones I knew." Adrian approached, standing beside her. "That one is my mother. That one is my first girlfriend, and that one in the corner is—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Sophia followed his gaze to a smaller, more delicate sculpture. It was a young woman, with a pose that suggested fragility and strength at the same time. "She died," Sophia said. It wasn't a question. "She died. Because of me." "How?" Adrian breathed deeply, as if preparing to open a wound that had never fully healed. "Her name was Ellen. She was 22 when we met. I was 19. She was luminous, the kind of person who makes you believe the world can be better." Sophia felt the weight of the confession in the air. "What happened?" "I loved her wrong. Loved her with possessiveness, with desperation, with an intensity that suffocated her." Adrian touched the sculpture with trembling fingers. "When she tried to pull away, I couldn't accept it. I did things I regret every day. And she, already struggling with depression, couldn't bear it. She killed herself, took an overdose of sedatives. Left a note saying she loved me, but that she couldn't breathe around me anymore." Adrian closed his eyes. "I was 20 when she died. I spent the next 2 years institutionalized, trying to understand how love can turn into destruction." Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. "And the other women, the ones in the files? They were attempts at redemption. Each one I saved was a way of trying to save Ellen, but I repeated the same mistakes, the same control, the same destructive intensity." Adrian opened his eyes, facing her. "Until I stopped. I swore I would never get involved with anyone again, until you appeared." "Why am I different?" "Because you don't need to be saved. You need to be freed. And maybe I do too." That night, Sophia couldn't get Ellen out of her head. The story had awakened something in her, a mixture of compassion and terror that made her question what she was doing. Was she following in the footsteps of a dead woman? Was she just another of Adrian's attempts to resurrect ghosts? Sitting in front of her computer, She decided to investigate on her own. She typed Ellen Mitchell overdose New York 2002 into Google. The results were few but sufficient. A small note in a local newspaper: young art student found dead in Brooklyn Heights apartment. The same Brooklyn Heights where Sophia now lived. What disturbed her most was a photo of the young woman. Ellen had brown hair, large expressive eyes, and a smile that radiated life. She was beautiful, but not extraordinarily so. It was the kind of beauty that came from within, exactly the type of woman Sophia had always wanted to be. The next morning, during the fourth day of rituals, Adrian proposed something different. They were again in the underground gallery, but this time there were drawing materials spread over a table. "I want you to draw," he said, handing her a charcoal. "Draw what you feel when you look at me." Sophia hesitated. Her drawings were the most intimate territory she possessed. She had never drawn in front of anyone. "I don't know if I can." "It doesn't need to be perfect, just honest." She took the charcoal with trembling hands and began to draw. First, she tried to reproduce his face, but the lines came out tense, forced. So she abandoned literalism and let her hands guide the process. What emerged on the paper was a fragmented male figure, part shadow, part light, with areas where the charcoal had been pressed so hard it tore the paper. "Interesting," Adrian murmured, observing the drawing. "You see me as someone broken." "I see you as someone who broke and tried to rebuild himself with the wrong pieces," Sophia corrected. "But I also see beauty in that imperfection." Adrian was silent for a long moment. "Now I draw you." "You draw?" "Not like you, but I can try." He took another charcoal and began to work. His hands were surprisingly skilled, each line executed with almost surgical precision. What emerged was a portrait of Sophia, but a version of her she didn't recognize. A woman with burning eyes, parted lips, loose hair. A sensual, powerful, free version. "That's not me," she said, but her voice trembled. "It's you that I see when you're not policing yourself. When you forget to be afraid." Adrian placed the drawing next to hers. "We're two broken people trying to understand each other." The following days became a delicate dance between revelation and restraint. Adrian didn't touch her, but his words were caresses. He didn't kiss her, but his gazes were kisses. The tension between them grew like an approaching storm, inevitable, destructive, but also promising. During this period, Sophia continued her private investigation. She discovered that Ellen had studied at the same university as her, frequented the same places, even lived in the same neighborhood. The coincidences were too disturbing to be just coincidences. It was on a Thursday that she found the file that would change everything. It was in the company's system, buried in a folder of old documents. It was Adrian's personal folder, password protected, but which due to a system error was temporarily accessible. The file was called Search and contained hundreds of documents: birth certificates, school records, graduation photos, work contracts. All of women, all young, all with a similar profile, intelligent, talented, from humble origins, and with some kind of emotional vulnerability. Sophia felt her blood freeze when she saw her own photo in the file. It wasn't a professional photo. It was an image of her leaving the university, taken without her knowledge. Next to it, a complete file. Sophia Baker, 23 years old, father unknown, mother deceased at 15, graduated in design, compatible psychological profile, initial contact scheduled for March 2024. Her job at the company hadn't been her own achievement. It had been a setup. Adrian had chosen her, studied her, manipulated her from the start. She wasn't different from the other women. She was just the most recent victim of his obsession. That night, she didn't show up for the ritual. She stayed home, looking at her own drawings, wondering how many of them had been unconsciously inspired by sophisticated psychological manipulation. Were her feelings for Adrian real, or just the result of calculated seduction? The next day, Adrian appeared at her door. She had never given him her address, but obviously he knew where she lived. He was different, disheveled, with deep dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. "You found out," he said, as soon as she opened the door. "Found out what?" "That I'm just another guinea pig in your psychological experiments." Sophia kept the door half open, ready to close it if necessary. "That you studied me, manipulated me, brought me into your company as if I were an object." "Yes," he said, and the brutal honesty of the response disarmed her. "But not for the reasons you imagine." "Then explain it to me." Adrian breathed deeply, as if preparing to open the last wound. I've spent the last 20 years looking for her. For Ellen. Not the person. She died. But her essence. What she represented. The possibility of loving without destroying. Sophia felt tears burning her eyes. And I'm just a substitute. No. You're the proof that it's possible to love again. To love truly. Because for the first time in 2 decades I want to protect someone instead of possessing her. He extended his hand, but didn't try to touch her. Sophia, I fell in love with you. Not with the idea of you, not with the memory you awaken, with you. And that terrifies me more than anything in life. Sophia closed the door in his face, not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. Her world had crumbled in a matter of minutes, and she needed time to process the magnitude of the betrayal. She spent the next 3 days locked in her house, calling work claiming illness, ignoring Adrian's calls, and trying to understand what was real in her life. She flipped through her old drawings with new eyes. Some dated from before she even knew Adrian, but all carried a repressed sensuality that now made sense. She had always been a woman of contained fire, waiting for someone to awaken her. The question was, had Adrian awakened something that already existed, or had he planted desires that weren't hers? It was the following Monday that she returned to work, determined to officially resign and cut all ties with that man. But upon arriving at her desk, she found a wooden box with an antique key. Inside, dozens of handwritten letters, all addressed to her but written over the past 2 years. The first letter was dated a week before she was hired. To the woman I don't yet know, but who already inhabits my dreams. Today I saw your photo for the first time. You were smiling at the camera at your graduation, but there was a sadness in your eyes that I immediately recognized. It's the same sadness I've carried since Ellen died. Perhaps you're the person who can teach me to transform that sadness into something beautiful. Sophia felt her stomach turn. The letters continued chronologically, documenting Adrian's growing obsession. He described moments when he had observed her without her knowledge, at the coffee shop on the corner, at the subway station, in the park where she sometimes walked on weekends. They weren't the letters of a stalker, but of a man trying to understand his own feelings through the observation of another person. A letter from the middle of the collection made her stop. Today you drew during lunch hour. You didn't know I was watching from my office window. Your hands moved with a passion you never demonstrate in other activities. You were drawing a man. I couldn't see the face, but I recognized the posture. It was me. You were drawing me without knowing I existed beyond a distant presence in the company. Does this mean there was already a connection between us, even before we spoke? Sophia remembered the drawing. It was true. She had drawn a faceless man, but with the posture of someone carrying an invisible weight. She had never consciously thought of Adrian while drawing him, but now she realized that unconsciously he already intrigued her. The last letter was from a week ago. Tomorrow you'll discover the files. I know you'll discover them because I let you discover them. I couldn't carry this weight alone anymore. I need you to know the truth, even if it means losing you. I prefer your honesty to my manipulation. If after knowing everything you still want to try, I'll be waiting. If not, I'll understand. For the first time in my life, I'm willing to let someone choose freely. Sophia folded the letters with trembling hands. Adrian had orchestrated even the discovery of his manipulation. It was a web within a web, but there was something in his words that sounded genuine. The desperation of a man who didn't know how to love in a healthy way, but who was trying to learn. That afternoon she went up to his office. The secretary said he was in a meeting, but Sophia pushed the door and entered. Adrian was alone, standing in front of the window, observing the city below. "You read the letters," he said without turning around. "I read them, all of them. And I need to know one thing. Are my feelings for you real, or are they the result of sophisticated psychological manipulation?" Adrian finally turned around. He was visibly haggard, as if he had lost weight in the last few days. "I don't know how to answer that. I know mine for you are real. More real than anything I've ever felt. Even knowing that you spent 2 years studying me like an object." "I didn't study you like an object. I studied you like someone studies a work of art they don't understand. But that deeply moves them." Adrian approached but maintained a respectful distance. "Sophia, you need to understand something. When Ellen died, I died a little with her. I spent 20 years functioning on autopilot, building this company, accumulating money, creating these sculptures, but never really living. And I'm your attempt at resurrection. No, you're my attempt to finally bury the past and build a future. Adrian stopped in front of her. I know I made mistakes. I know the way I approached you was wrong. But the rituals, the moments we spent together, the connection I felt, that was real, at least for me. Sophia observed him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Genuine vulnerability. You said you loved me. But how can I believe someone who's lied to me since day one? You can't, and I don't expect you to believe me. I expect you to give me a chance to prove it. Adrian backed up a few steps. The agreement is over. You're free to leave if you want. But if you stayed, if you gave me a real chance, without manipulation, without games, just two adults trying to really know each other. And the other women, the ones in the files? They've all been contacted, I apologized. Offered financial reparation when necessary. Closed the search program for good. Adrian opened a drawer and took out a paper. This is the deed to a property I bought upstate. I plan to build an arts institute there. A place where women like you, like Ellen, like all the others, can develop their talents without interference, without manipulation. Just support. Sophia took the paper. It was a property in the Hudson Valley, valued in the millions. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to run it. I want you to transform it into something beautiful, something that helps other women discover their talents. Not as my employee, but as my partner, as my equal. And if I refuse, then I'll do it alone. But it won't be the same. It won't be you. Sophia looked at the paper, then at Adrian. For the first time, she saw not the powerful, manipulative man, but a broken human being trying to fix himself. I need time. I understand. And I need absolute honesty. No more secrets, no more manipulation. I promise. And I need you to stay completely away for a month. No contact, no observation, nothing. I need to discover who I am when you're not influencing my life. Adrian nodded, despite the visible pain in his eyes. 1 month? After that? After that, we'll see. The month of separation was both liberating and torturous. Sophia officially resigned and used her savings to support herself while exploring a version of herself she didn't know. Without Adrian's constant presence, without the intensity of the rituals, without the sexual tension that permeated each encounter, she could finally breathe. She returned to drawing with a freedom she hadn't felt in years. Her strokes became bolder, more sensual, more honest. She created a series of self-portraits where she appeared naked, not physically, but emotionally. Drawings that showed her vulnerability, her fears, her deepest desires. It was as if she was doing therapy through art. She also began to investigate her own history. She looked for old documents, certificates, records that could give her clues about the father she never knew. Her mother had always been evasive about the subject, saying only that he was a complicated man who had left before she was born. It was on a rainy April afternoon that she made the discovery that would change everything. She was organizing her mother's belongings, stored in boxes in the closet, when she found a folder hidden in the bottom of a drawer. Inside, love letters dated 1999, all signed by A. The letters were passionate, intense, written by someone who loved deeply, but who fought against his own demons. "My dear Maria," one of the letters said, "you make me believe that I can be more than the sum of my mistakes. When our child is born, I promise I'll be the father he or she deserves. Not like mine was with me." Sophia felt the world spin. The letters were from Adrian. Her mother's name had been Maria. Adrian wasn't just a man obsessed with vulnerable women, he was her father. With trembling hands, she continued reading. The letters told the story of a troubled relationship between a young 19-year-old Adrian and an older woman, Maria, who worked as a cleaner at the Vellini family's company. It was an impossible passion, a love that defied all social conventions. "My father found out about us," said another letter, "threatened to fire her, to destroy her life if she didn't disappear. I'm trying to find a way to protect us, but he has too much power. Perhaps it's better for you to leave for now. When I have control of the company, when I can protect us, I'll look for you." The last letter was dated 2 months before Sophia's birth. "Maria, I'm desperate. I can't find you. My father said you left for the countryside, but he didn't give me your address. Our child must be born soon. Please give me a chance to be a father. Don't abandon me like Ellen abandoned me." Sophia dropped the letters on the floor. Ellen hadn't been the first woman Adrian lost. She had been the second. Her mother had been the first. And now she, Sophia, was the third woman in his life following the same pattern. Intense love, obsession, loss. But there was something even more disturbing. If Adrian was her father, then everything that had happened between them, the attraction, the rituals, the desire, was a form of emotional incest. She felt nausea rise in her throat. She ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left in her stomach. That night she didn't sleep. She walked around the apartment trying to process the information. Adrian had spent 25 years looking for her, but didn't know she was his daughter. He had fallen in love with his own daughter. He had tried to seduce her, but then a doubt arose. Did he really not know? Was the whole story about searching for vulnerable women just an excuse to hide an even darker truth? The next morning she decided to confront him. She couldn't wait another 2 weeks until the end of the deadline. She needed answers immediately. She found Adrian at the company building, working on a Saturday morning. He was in the underground gallery, welding a new sculpture. When he saw her, his face lit up in a way that made her feel even more nauseous. "Sophia, you shouldn't be here. There are still 2 weeks left. I found some things," she said, taking the letters from her purse. "Things that change everything." Adrian looked at the letters and turned pale. "Where did you get these?" "They belong to my mother, Maria Baker. Do you remember her?" Adrian put down the welder and moved away from the sculpture. His hands were trembling. "Maria. She was pregnant when she disappeared. I looked for her for years. My father said she had aborted, that she didn't want anything to do with me anymore. She didn't abort. She had me. I'm your daughter, Adrian." The silence that followed was deafening. Adrian leaned against the wall as if he had been punched in the stomach. "No," he murmured. "No, that's not possible." "It is possible. And it's true, you spent 2 years studying me, seducing me, falling in love with your own daughter." "I didn't know," he said, and his voice was broken. "I swear to God, Sophia, I didn't know. If I had known, I would never have..." "Would never have what? Manipulated me? Brought me into your company? Made me participate in your perverse rituals?" Adrian let himself slide down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. "I thought I was paying a price for Ellen's death. I thought I was destined to destroy all the women I loved. But this is worse than any punishment I could have imagined." Sophia observed him, trying to find signs of lies in his expression. But all she saw was a completely shattered man. "You need to take a DNA test. I need to be absolutely certain." "I will. Today." Adrian got up with difficulty. "Sophia, you have to believe me. I would never have gotten involved with you if I had known the truth. But you did get involved, and now we have to deal with the consequences." "What consequences?" Sophia breathed deeply. "I was falling in love with you. Despite everything, despite the manipulation, I was beginning to feel something real. And now to discover that you're my father, it's as if everything is contaminated." "We are victims of the same man," Adrian said, referring to his own father. "He destroyed our chance to be father and daughter. And now he destroyed our chance to be anything else. Maybe it's better this way," Sophia murmured. "Maybe some loves are destined to remain impossible. Or maybe," Adrian said, looking at her with an intensity that made her shudder, "maybe we can find a way to transform this tragedy into something beautiful, not as father and daughter because we lost that chance, but as two people who met too late, but who can still save each other." Sophia stared at him, horrified. "Are you suggesting we continue?" "I'm suggesting we don't let the past destroy the future. We're not biologically father and daughter in the traditional sense. We're two adults who were deprived of a normal relationship and who now have to decide what to do with what remains. This is madness. Maybe. But every great passion is a form of madness." Sophia fled, not just from the building, but from New York. She took a bus to the Hudson Valley, to the property that Adrian had bought, without knowing exactly why she was going there. Perhaps it was the only way to process everything that had happened, surrounded by nature, away from the urban intensity that had shaped her life. The property was even more beautiful than she had imagined. 15 acres of preserved forest, with an old wooden house in the center, and a breathtaking view of the mountains. It was the kind of place where the soul could finally breathe. She stayed there for 2 weeks, walking, drawing, trying to understand what she felt. During this time, Adrian searched for her incessantly. Calls, messages, emails, all ignored. He even appeared at the property once, but she refused to speak with him. She watched from the window as he remained standing on the porch for hours, like a statue of pain, before finally leaving. It was on a sunny morning that she received an envelope slipped under the door. Inside, the DNA test result. Compatibility, 99.7%. Adrian was definitely her biological father. Along with the test, there was a letter. Sophia, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need you to know some things. I hired a detective to investigate what happened to your mother after she disappeared. I discovered that my father not only fired her, but also spread rumors about her in the city, destroying her reputation. She had to move upstate, work as a cleaner in several homes to support herself during the pregnancy. She died in a car accident when you were 15, returning from work on a rainy night. She never married, never had another relationship. Kept the letters I wrote to her until the end. Sophia felt tears streaming down her face. Her mother had been a strong woman, but also a woman who had carried a silent pain throughout her life. The letter continued, I failed as a father before you were even born. I couldn't protect your mother, I couldn't protect you, but now I want to try to repair that. Not as a lover, I know that's impossible now, but as someone who loves you in a way that transcends definitions. I want you to have everything you should have had since birth. Education, opportunities, security. I want you to fulfill your dreams, not mine. At the end of the letter, there was information that left her even more confused. I also researched Ellen. I discovered that she didn't kill herself because of our passion. She killed herself because she found out she was pregnant and knew I could never be an adequate father, given my family history. She killed herself to protect the child that was never born, just as your mother sacrificed herself to protect you from the toxic environment of my family. Sophia folded the letter with trembling hands. 2 women had died trying to protect children from Adrian. Her mother had survived, but carried the weight of the separation until the end. And now she was repeating the pattern, fleeing to protect herself and him from the destruction that seemed inevitable. That night she dreamed of her mother. Maria appeared young, beautiful, radiant, holding a baby in her arms. You don't need to carry my pain, she said in the dream. You can choose a different path. You can choose to forgive. You can choose to love in a way I never could. Sophia woke up with a clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. She couldn't run forever. She couldn't let the past determine her future. She needed to confront Adrian one last time, not as a daughter, not as a lover, but as an adult woman who made her own decisions. She returned to New York on a Thursday. She found Adrian in his apartment, a minimalist penthouse in Tribeca that reflected his complex personality. He was visibly haggard, thinner, with deep circles under his eyes. You came back, he said, as if he couldn't believe it. I came back to talk, one last time. They sat in the living room with a safe distance between them. Sophia breathed deeply before speaking. I spent these weeks thinking about our situation, about what we are, what we were, what we could have been. She paused, organizing her thoughts. I've reached some conclusions. Adrian observed her in silence, as if he feared any word could make her disappear again. First conclusion, you are my biological father, but you've never been my real father. You didn't raise me, didn't educate me, weren't present at any moment in my life. We're strangers connected by DNA, nothing more. Adrian nodded, accepting the harsh truth. Second conclusion, what I felt for you was real. It wasn't just the result of manipulation, it was genuine attraction, emotional connection, the beginning of something that could have been love. But now that possibility is dead. I know, Adrian murmured. Third conclusion, we can choose how to deal with this. We can destroy ourselves with guilt and remorse, or we can find a way to transform this tragedy into something constructive. Adrian raised his eyes, a spark of hope shining in them. I want you to keep your promise about the Arts Institute. I want you to build something that helps other women not to go through what my mother went through, what Ellen went through, what I went through. Sophia stood up, walking to the window. But I want you to do it alone. I can't be involved. Why not? Because I still feel something for you, and that's dangerous for both of us. Sophia turned to face him. I need time to process all of this. Maybe years, maybe decades, maybe forever. Adrian stood up too, but didn't approach. And if I wait? You can't wait. You're 41, Adrian. You can't waste what's left of your life waiting for something that may never happen. But what if it does happen? Sophia smiled sadly. If it happens, if someday we can see each other without carrying the weight of the past, if we find a way to love that isn't destructive, then maybe we can try again. Not as father and daughter, not as impossible lovers, but as two people who met in the darkness and decided to seek the light together. Is that all I can hope for? It's all I can offer right now. Adrian nodded, accepting the conditions. Then I'll wait. Not because you asked, but because I don't know how to do anything else. You're the only real thing that's happened in my life in 20 years. Sophia headed for the door but stopped before leaving. Adrian. Yes? Thank you for teaching me that it's possible to feel intensely without destroying myself, even if we haven't managed to apply that lesson to our own story. Thank you for teaching me that it's possible to love without possessing, even if I haven't completely learned it yet. She left without looking back, knowing that if she looked, she wouldn't be able to leave. 2 years passed. Sophia had moved to Los Angeles, where she worked as a freelance artist and art therapist. She had found her calling helping other women express themselves through drawing and painting. Her apartment in Venice Beach was small but full of life, colorful paintings on the walls, plants everywhere, and a view of the ocean that calmed her every morning. During this period, she had avoided any contact with Adrian. She blocked his numbers, rejected his emails, and asked mutual friends not to mention his name. It was the only way to heal the wounds that still bled when she least expected it, but she discreetly followed his progress. The Ellen Maria Institute, as he had named the project, had become an impressive reality. Located in the Hudson Valley, the Institute offered artistic residency for low-income women, free courses and psychological support. It was exactly what she had dreamed of when Adrian first mentioned the idea. Sophia had gotten involved with a few people over these 2 years, casual relationships, never anything serious. She discovered that she could feel pleasure, could connect emotionally, but there was always an invisible barrier that prevented her from completely surrendering. Adrian had awakened something in her that no other man could touch. It was on a rainy Tuesday in May that her world turned upside down again. She was in her studio, finishing a painting for a client, when she received a call from an unknown number. Sophia, this is Dr. Henry Morris from Mount Sinai Hospital. I need to talk to you about Adrian Vellini. Her heart raced. What happened? He was in a car accident 3 days ago. He was in a coma but woke up today. The first thing he asked was for us to contact you. Sophia felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. Is he okay? He will survive, but he has serious injuries, multiple fractures, head trauma. He'll need a long time to recover. The doctor paused. Ms. Baker, he won't stop asking for you. He refuses to speak to anyone else. I know it's a lot to ask, but would it be possible? I'll go, she interrupted, before even fully processing what she was saying. I'll be there tomorrow. The trip back to New York was torment. Sophia couldn't stop thinking about what she would find at the hospital. What if Adrian was disfigured? What if he died before she arrived? What if, after 2 years convincing herself she had overcome her feelings, she discovered that nothing had changed? Mount Sinai Hospital was a place she knew well. She had spent her mother's last days there. Finding Adrian in the same place brought a disturbing sense of déjà vu. He was in room 521, surrounded by medical equipment. His face was bruised, his right arm in a cast, and he had an expression of pain that went beyond the physical. When he saw her enter, his eyes filled with tears. You came, he murmured, trying to sit up in bed. Don't move, Sophia said, cautiously approaching. The doctor said you have serious fractures. I don't care about the fractures, you came. That's all that matters. Sophia pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. Adrian looked older, more fragile. The 2 years of separation had left marks on him too. What happened? She asked. I was coming back from Hudson Valley. I had just inaugurated a new wing of the Institute. I was thinking about you like I always do when I'm there. I lost control of the car on a curve. Adrian looked at her intensely. While I was unconscious, I dreamed about you. I dreamed we were normal people, that we had met under normal circumstances. I dreamed you were pregnant with my child. Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine. Adrian, I know. I know it's impossible. I know we're condemned to love imperfectly. But during those 3 days in a coma, I lived an entire lifetime with you. And when I woke up, I realized I can no longer pretend I don't feel what I feel. And what do you feel? That I love you. Not as a father, because I was never your father. Not as a lover, because we could never be lovers. But in a way that transcends all these definitions. I love you as one loves their own soul. Sophia closed her eyes, fighting back tears. You can't say these things. Why not? Because society says it's wrong? Because biology says it's impossible? Or because you feel the same thing and are afraid to admit it? Sophia opened her eyes and faced him. Because it's dangerous. Because every time we get close, someone gets hurt. Your mother died trying to protect us. Ellen died trying to protect a child. You almost died thinking about me. We're toxic for each other. Or maybe we're two people who learned to love in the wrong way and now need to learn to love in the right way. Adrian stopped in front of her. Sophia, I have a proposal. A different proposal from all the others. What kind of proposal? Let's go far away, to Europe, to Asia, anywhere no one knows us. Let's start from scratch. Not as father and daughter, not as CEO and employee, not as manipulator and victim. Just as Adrian and Sophia. Two people who met and decided to build something new. Sophia looked at the extended hand, then at his eyes. And if it doesn't work out? Then at least we'll have tried. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering, what if? Adrian, you almost died. You're vulnerable, confused. I'm lucid. For the first time in 43 years, I'm completely lucid. I know exactly what I'm asking and I know exactly what you mean to me. Sophia remained silent for a long moment. Part of her wanted to take his hand, accept the proposal, flee to a place where they could be just two people in love. But the rational part knew it was impossible to escape what they were. I need to think, she finally said. How much time do you need? I don't know, maybe forever. Adrian smiled sadly. Then I'll wait forever. I have nothing more to lose. Sophia stood up, kissed his forehead gently and left the room. In the corridor, she leaned against the wall and cried. She cried for everything they could have been, for everything they would never be, and for everything they could still become if they had enough courage to defy fate. But deep down, she already knew what her answer would be. She had always known. Sophia spent 3 weeks in Los Angeles trying to make a decision. But every morning she woke up, every sunset she observed from the window, every moment she touched a brush to the canvas, she felt the same emptiness. Adrian had become part of her in a way she couldn't explain or deny. She decided to do one last investigation. She hired a genealogist to trace her family tree, hoping to find something that could change the situation. What she discovered left her even more confused. Adrian was not her biological father. The DNA test had been falsified, not by Adrian, but by someone who wanted to separate them. Investigating more deeply, Sophia discovered that the real manipulator behind everything was Robert Vellini, Adrian's father, who even after death continued to control their lives through a complex will and people who still owed him favors. Robert had discovered Sophia's whereabouts years before, had orchestrated her hiring at the company, and had manipulated events so that she and Adrian would meet. But when he realized they were really falling in love, he decided to destroy the relationship by planting false evidence about paternity. The plan was simple: make Adrian believe he had fallen in love with his own daughter, destroying him psychologically, and make Sophia move away for good, ensuring he would never find happiness. Sophia felt a mixture of anger and relief. Anger at having been manipulated once more, relief at discovering her feelings weren't wrong, but also fear. Fear that it was too late. Fear that the damage was already done. She returned to New York on a June morning. Adrian had already been discharged from the hospital, but was still recovering. She found him in the underground gallery, welding a new sculpture. It was a female figure, but this time with a face, her face. You came back, he said, turning off the equipment. I came back. And I brought something that will change everything. Sophia took the documents from her purse. You're not my father, Adrian. You never were. Adrian took the papers with trembling hands. He read each line, each document, each piece of evidence that they had been victims of an even more sophisticated manipulation than they had imagined. My father, he murmured. Even dead, he's still controlling my life. Not anymore, Sophia said, approaching him. It's over. There's nothing separating us anymore except what we choose to separate us. Adrian looked at her as if she were an apparition. Does this mean that... It means that we're two adults free to choose what to do with our feelings. Sophia stopped in front of him. It means I can do this. She approached and kissed him. It was a soft kiss at first, then more intense, laden with 2 years of longing and fear. When they separated, both were crying. I love you, Adrian said, touching her face. I love you in a way that not even I understand. I love you too, and I'm tired of fighting against it. Then don't fight anymore. Let's leave. Let's go far away from here and build something of our own. Sophia smiled for the first time in months. Where to? To Tuscany. I bought a property there, thinking of you. It's a place where we can just be ourselves. And the institute? It will continue to operate, but now under your supervision as well. You can create art therapy programs, expand the work. Adrian pulled her closer. We can transform our pain into something that helps other people. Sophia nodded, finally feeling that she could breathe completely. When would we leave? Whenever you want. Today, tomorrow, next week. I've been waiting for you all my life. I can wait a few more days. No, I don't want to wait any longer. We've already wasted too much time. Adrian kissed her again, and this time it was a kiss without fear, without guilt, without reservations. It was the kiss of two people who had gone through hell and chosen to find paradise in each other. There's something I need to tell you, Sophia murmured against his lips. What? That night, when you said I was hungry, you were right. I was hungry to live, to feel, to be touched, but I only managed to discover that through you. And you taught me that it's possible to love without destroying, that it's possible to be intense without being toxic. So we're teachers to each other? We're everything to each other, Adrian replied, holding her as if she might disappear. We're what's left after the world tried to destroy us. Sophia smiled, resting her head on his chest. You know what's ironic? Your father tried to separate us, but ended up uniting us even more, because now we know that what we feel is strong enough to survive anything. Including ourselves, Adrian added. Including ourselves. They remained embraced for a long time in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by sculptures that represented all the pain and all the beauty they had lived. It was the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. The end of the search and the beginning of discovery. The end of manipulation and the beginning of freedom. Outside, New York continued its frantic life. But down there in the basement, where Adrian created his works and where Sophia had finally found her home, time seemed suspended. It was as if the world had stopped to allow two wounded souls to finally heal each other. Ready to start over? Adrian asked. Ready, Sophia answered, and for the first time in years she truly believed in the possibility of a happy ending. 6 months later, Sophia woke up in the Tuscan villa with the sun filtering through the white linen curtains. Next to her, Adrian slept deeply, with a serene expression she had never seen before. The past months had been a journey of discovery, discovering how to love without fear, how to be vulnerable without destroying oneself, how to build a future on the ashes of the past. The property was everything Adrian had promised. A 17th-century house surrounded by vineyards, olive trees, and lavender fields. They had transformed the ground floor into a joint studio. She painted while he sculpted, creating art that reflected not pain anymore, but the possibility of healing. Sophia got up carefully, put on a robe, and went out to the veranda. The view was breathtaking. Rolling hills extended as far as the eye could see, dotted with small medieval towns that seemed to have come out of a dream. It was hard to believe that just a few months earlier, she was running away from Adrian, convinced they were condemned to mutually destroy each other. You woke up early, his voice sounded behind her. Sophia turned and smiled. Adrian was at the door of the veranda, wearing only pajama pants, his hair tousled and a smile that made her melt every morning. I can't waste any sunrise here, she said, extending her hand to him. Adrian approached and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Have you decided? Decided what? If you'll accept my proposal. The night before, Adrian had knelt in front of her with a ring, not a traditional ring, but a piece he had created himself, a gold band with small sculpted figures that told their story. It was both delicate and intense, like everything in their relationship. You know it's more complicated than simply saying yes, Sophia murmured, leaning against him. Why? Because when we return to the States, people will ask questions. They'll want to know our story, how we met, why we separated, why we came back, and we can't tell the truth. Then we tell our truth, that we're two people who met, lost each other, and found each other again. That we learned to love the right way after loving the wrong way. Sophia turned in his arms. And if it doesn't work out? If we discover we only function far from the real world? Then we'll find a way to function in the real world, or we'll create our own world. Adrian touched her face. Sophia, I spent 43 years waiting for you. I won't waste more time being afraid. I'm only 25. I still have so much to discover, so much to live. Then let's discover together. Let's live together, not as two people who complete each other, but as two complete people who choose to share a life. Sophia looked at the ring on her hand. It was perfect, exactly as she had imagined it would be if someone ever asked her to marry them. There's a condition. Which? I want us to renew our vows every year. I want us to be obligated to consciously choose to stay together, not out of habit or convenience. Adrian smiled. That's very pragmatic for a romantic. I learned from you that true love requires conscious work. It's not a feeling that simply happens. It's a decision we make every day. I agree to the condition. Any others? I want us to have children. Not now, but eventually. I want you to have the chance to be the father you couldn't be with your daughter who never existed. Adrian felt tears burn his eyes. You would give me that gift? We would give ourselves that gift. The chance to get it right this time. Adrian kissed her with an intensity that left her breathless. Then yes. Yes to everything. Yes to the marriage, yes to the children, yes to renewing our vows every year, yes to building a life together. Sophia slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made specifically for her. Then yes. I accept to marry you, Adrian Vellini. When? Today, now. I don't want to wait any longer. Adrian laughed, a sound she had learned to love. We can't get married today. We need documents, a ceremony. Then we get married symbolically today and make it official later. I want this moment to be ours, without bureaucracy, without formalities. They spent the rest of the morning planning an improvised ceremony. Sophia picked flowers from the garden and made a bouquet. Adrian wrote vows on paper napkins, and at 5 in the afternoon, when the sun began to set over the vineyards, they got married. There was no priest, there were no guests, there was no music besides the birdsong. But there was love, there were promises. There was the conscious decision of two people who had found in each other not just a partner, but a home. I, Adrian, promise to love you, Sophia, not as one who possesses, but as one who cares for, he said, holding her hands. I promise to protect you, not from all pains, but to be present in all of them. I promise to see you not as the woman you were or could be, but as the woman you are each day. I, Sophia, promise to love you, Adrian, not as one who saves, but as one who accompanies, she responded, with tears streaming down her face. I promise to challenge you to be better not by demand, but by inspiration. I promise to build with you not a perfect love, but a real one. They kissed as the sun touched the horizon, and for the first time in their lives, both felt they were exactly where they should be. 6 months later, they returned to the United States, not to New York, but to the Hudson Valley, where they transformed the Institute into an even bigger project. Sophia created an art therapy program for women who had been in abusive relationships. Adrian expanded the support to include men who wanted to learn how to love in a healthy way. They got officially married in a small ceremony, with just a few close friends. Sophia wore a simple dress she had bought at a local store. Adrian wore a suit that had belonged to his grandfather. It was exactly the opposite of what anyone would expect from a millionaire CEO, but it was perfect for them. 3 years later, Sophia became pregnant. Throughout the pregnancy, Adrian was the most careful and attentive man she had ever known. He treated her as if she were made of crystal, but also encouraged her to remain strong, to continue creating, to continue being herself. Ellen Maria Vellini was born on a spring morning, with her mother's eyes and her father's intense temperament. When Adrian held her for the first time, he cried, not from sadness, but from gratitude. He had finally found a way to honor the memory of Ellen and Maria without carrying guilt. She's perfect, he murmured, watching his daughter sleep. She's ours, Sophia corrected, touching the baby's tiny hand. She's proof that it's possible to create beauty from pain. Adrian looked at Sophia, at the daughter in her arms, at the life they had built together. You know what's ironic? What? I spent so many years trying to save women, trying to redeem myself through them. But the one who saved me was you. And you didn't do it by forgiving me or healing me. You did it by loving me. Sophia smiled, the same smile that had won Adrian over years before. And you saved me too. Not by taking me out of a bad situation, but by showing me it was possible to feel intensely without destroying myself. So we're two saviors who saved each other. We're two people who learned that true love isn't about saving or being saved. It's about choosing to grow together. Adrian kissed his daughter's forehead, then his wife's. Then I choose to grow with you, today and every day. Today and every day, Sophia repeated, and for the first time in her life she completely believed in the possibility of a happy ending that lasted forever. Outside, the world remained complicated. But there, in the small house surrounded by mountains, 3 people had found something that transcended all complications. A family built on the solid foundation of conscious love, chosen and renewed with each dawn.